Why do you host travelers?
Why do we host travelers? Because I think we enjoy talking to people from other cultures and other philosophical backgrounds and trying to understand what's really going on in our world. It gives us an opportunity to share our belief system, what we believe in, and then it also gets a lot of work done around here.
I mean, I think to add to that, in most recent years, we've hosted workaways because we were like free labor, woohoo, for him especially. But I remember growing up, I mean, we always had exchange. We had kids that were going to Carroll who were exchange students, and we would have them for meals and stuff like that. So I think that's always been a big part of our upbringing. I mean, we've always had people in the house, and I think it's also taught us to be really, really welcoming to people. All of us are super hosts in terms of just like opening up the home. All of us have had experiences where people have opened up their homes for us. Yeah. I mean, we've always had that as a family. And so I think we really enjoy passing that on to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when our kids got to do couch surfing in Europe and that kind of thing, we felt like it was a way to give back. Mm-hmm.
I think there's always been like people from other cultures who have been around, like missionaries or exchange students or whatever. But then a lot of people just from his work or whatnot, and that was always a really positive aspect of I think my childhood and growing up with my parents, because they. It was always fun to meet other people and to interact with people who were from other places, and I think it also like encouraged all of us kids to one, be open to other people and their experiences and where they come from, and then also I think it taught all of us how to like practice hospitality in a pretty practical way. Practicing hospitality doesn't always mean you're just making like a delicious meal or whatever. Sometimes it's just being friendly or including someone or whatever. So I'm really thankful that my parents just were an example in that way to us. And so seeing them since, they started hosting couch surfers and workawayers and whatnot after I like left home, and seeing them do that has always been like really cool. Like I've always been thankful because I have a lot of friends my age who have parents who are empty nesters, and they got 3 open bedrooms and don't do anything with them, and my parents are always like utilizing the space that they have, and I think like just sharing their experience with other people, and then also getting to take part in other people's experiences, which is pretty cool.
How does hosting make your life different?
Well, it has its challenges, especially like when we had four people. It was just a lot.
It was a bit overwhelming.
It was overwhelming to me.
It can be a challenge to have a stranger in your house, especially if they don't necessarily drive, which is bound to happen. Some people get along really well with the family, and some people it's like they have nothing in common, don't necessarily want to do the same things that we want to do. So I think it makes you have to be more flexible and more open to, including somebody that you're not used to.
And my parents are always talking about how great it is, and how much they're enjoying meeting people from other cultures. And, so I think it's made their lives different in just the sense of like they're like interacting and rubbing shoulders with people who are different than them and who think differently than them. And I think that's really, I do think that I've seen my parents like grow and mature in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I kind of think that when you're in like a constant routine for years on end, it can be easy to be stagnant. And I haven't actually seen that with my parents. I think my parents have, through work away and then other circumstances in their lives, I've seen them like grow and continue to mature as people, which I think is awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah, and I'm thankful for that.
What religion do you practice, if any, and does it have any effect on your hosting decisions?
Well, I think without question we're Bible-believing evangelical Christians, and I think it affects everything else in our life, so I'm sure it affects our hosting. we try to be kind and gracious, and I think show the love of Christ. At the same time, we have our boundaries and try to understand other cultures and understand what they believe, but also put it through the filter of what the Bible says is reality and real. And that makes for some challenging situations at times. So,
Well, I mean, and there are other things. I mean, it affects how you allow people to come in. I mean, you don't allow couples to stay in same rooms. Oftentimes you would have devotions where the workaways would have to be there. Workaways have to go to church with you. All those kind of things.
they don't have to, but we ask them to.
Right.
We would ask that. What we do is, and you've experienced this, but we just ask everybody that comes into our home to be a part of our home and to participate in the things that we do in our home. And what Katie said is all of it. You know, I don't know that we've ever really, well, we did when we first did, because the kids were still in. When my kids were all going through high school, we had devotions every morning during breakfast. And so whoever was here participated in the devotions. That's, you know, I wanted to have that kind of input into my children's lives, and I certainly would like to have some of that kind of input into other people's lives, because I think it's very meaningful and I think it's true. That's basically the way we've lived. We've been married 31 years now. And we've based our entire married life and the raising of our children all on that, all on what the Bible says about life and reality and the afterlife and relationship and good, bad, different, indifferent, everything.
I think that it was a good opportunity for a lot of the workaways who had really no previous exposure to any sort of religion, or I guess the inside of a Christian home. I think it was good for them to be exposed to that, as opposed to what most are exposed to, which is negative aspects of religion. You know, kind of, I don't know. There's a lot of things that are connected to Christianity that are pretty negative. And I think it's cool for them to be here and, you know, just see like the simple daily things that Christians do and appreciate and value. I've enjoyed talking to them about that stuff.
Do you all have any thoughts on minimalism?
We're on opposite ends of the couch for a reason.
We had a really good discussion about it a few weeks ago, in terms of just living more simply. And I mean, I think I would love to see that. I would love to see us live more simply.
When our children were small, we never had a house that was quite big enough for all of us. And we had the opportunity to build this house. There's a story behind that, but this is a larger home, but there's not anything that's really, what do I want to say, extra about this home. We built, when the guy asked me if what I wanted for a house, I said, I want as much space as you can build me so that my kids can all have maybe even a room of their own. And so basically all of our kids had a room to themselves. This is not a fancy house, but it's a big house. And that was, at that time in our life, I thought was the minimum we could do, and yet the maximum in one sense, so that we had space and my kids could have sort of their own independence within the home.
How many kids do you have?
5. So there was 7 of us for quite a while in this house. Am I a minimalist? Well, I'm not. That for me is sort of where my minimal thing was with raising a family. I'm 63, I just turned 63 yesterday, so where am I now? Well, this is a lot now. Having workaways in is part of it, you know, enjoying that. We still have lots of people in and out of the house. But as to whether we would want to continue to have this size of house with the acreage we have and everything, that's something we're sort of in discussion about. I have a closet full of clothes that probably most of them are not needed. And I tend to not get rid of things as quickly as I should. But I don't go out and buy clothes. People give them to me. I mean, the shirt I have on was given to me. If I had to put it in a nutshell, one man I listened to years ago said this. He said, live simply that others might simply live. And so I think what we've agreed on in our marriage is that we will try to live, comfortably, but then we also try to give. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on that, but we give a lot. That's a blessing for us. That's fun for us. But we like to do that because we want to encourage life in other people.
I would say that my outlook on minimalism has definitely changed and morphed and evolved into something quite different than what I grew up. I mean, I think growing up with 5 kids and not necessarily having a lot of money, or we, like you said, we grew up in pretty small houses. I mean, we always shared rooms. I think when you're growing up with that, that many kids, like there's almost this like hoarder mentality, like, or not hoarder, I don't even want to say hoarder, but I just remember growing up, like I would get a gift or, get some sort of body spray or lotion and just keep it. And I would never use it because I was just so excited to have it and to not have to share it with the other kids. And as I've gotten older, I cannot stand having a lot of stuff. I mean, I just can't stand it. Like I, sold all my stuff when I left Oregon, and since then I probably own 2 or 3 pieces of furniture, and that's about it. Like I don't like having a bunch of things.
Why?
Because it's just, I think mentally, I don't think it adds anything. It adds more stress. Like the more stuff that I have, the more stressful it is, more like things that are going to take care of, the more choices, I recently heard this thing about children in America who have, maybe we discussed this a little bit, I don't remember who I've discussed it with, but they have symptoms close to post-traumatic stress disorder because of all of the stuff that they have all the time. Like they have iPads and iPhones and they have so many toys and they have so many choices and they're just surrounded by this like chaos. And I can't see why that wouldn't carry into your adulthood. I mean, we're just like constantly stimulated and we need all of these things, and if I don't have my iPhone to like look through stuff while I'm also listening to a conversation, then it's like I can't just be there, and it's just craziness. Like I think it's just we have a culture of consuming, and I think that it's a bit of a addiction in a lot of cases that people don't recognize at all.
I think sometimes, and I think, well, okay, the minimalist, that I would agree with that, but when you start having children,
oh yeah,
they do change a bit.
Sure.
I'll admit,
Yeah. and have animals outside. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a whole different.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
things begin to change, and you have to accumulate.
I, in some ways, like the idea. I didn't almost buy a tiny home, but I'm attracted to the idea of minimalism. I considered moving into a tent, like in Oregon somewhere, and trying to live as minimalist as I could. In some ways, I'm attracted to it, but I've had friends who have like tried to do the live in a camper basically thing, and unfortunately, I think unless you're really intentional about it, it seems like you end up actually becoming dependent on other people. It seems to me that minimalism has something to do with self-reliance and being independent of other people. Or maybe that's my perspective of it, would be that if I'm going to be minimal, it would be so that I'm not leeching off of anybody else. And I just haven't seen that, I guess, in the whole like tiny home thing.
Sure.
And then like this kind of glamorous like tiny home thing. They're like taking these campers and they're just putting a ton of crap in them and making them really extravagant. And that's like, I just don't see.
Yeah.
I don't see that. But going back to your original question about minimalism, I'm very attracted to it. I think minimalism doesn't always have to be getting rid of everything you own living on nothing. I think minimalism could just be simplifying what you do, simplifying it in such a way that you're using what you have for its purposes,
Exactly.
and being intentional with what you buy and what you spend your money on. I think minimalism can be difficult when you have a family. That's something I'm learning, I think, because everybody has different preferences on what they think is important and what they think is necessary for their lifestyle. I hope to be the type of person who doesn't, and I hope to have a family who doesn't have an excess of things, but that doesn't mean that we don't have things we enjoy. But I also like to be the type of person who uses what I have